So there's the investigation part. He's looking left and looking right, or looking right and looking left. So that pose right there, looking right and looking left. We're gonna work on that today. That's pose to pose animation. The rest of that stuff, even that right there, the rest of this stuff is all methods. He's being moved and turning the flashlight on and off with methods. So that's what we're gonna work on today, is the pose to pose stuff with looking left and right with a flashlight. So I'm going to close this file. Actually, I'm going to open up a file I created called stage. It's stage.a2w. You are going to get this world tomorrow when I send the email out. And it really is just a grass world, but that you get with the templates. But I added some cameras to it. They're over here. Every time you open up a file that has cameras in it or dummies in it, what's going to happen is you get this error code if you try to go to one of the dummies. For some reason, I don't know why. It's not that it's nothing's broken. Everything's fine. It's just that what you have to do is drop a dummy into the scene, and that will activate your views. Now you can start moving them around, and they're activated now. I don't know why it does it. I don't think it's supposed to do that. But the only bad thing about it is you created a dummy that you didn't really necessarily want. So just right-click on that and delete it. Okay. Now that this file has been created, or now that it's working now, what I want to do is show you why I created it and how you can use it. If you bring if you bring an object into the world, what you can do is, if you go to the front view, you'll see it from the front. If you go to the right view, you'll see it from the right. In the top view, obviously, you'll see it from the top. And this penguin's all akimbo. He's not where he's supposed to be. And that's the reason why that is because I've designed this so that you can go, no matter what object you bring into Alice, if you go to the point of view and change it to 0, 0, 0, now it'll be set into place. These cameras are now equipped to view the object from the right 90-degree angle while you're doing actions on it. So I have this file set up. It's called stage.atw or a2w, and I'm going to share that with you tomorrow. And what you'll do is open it in Alice, and then you want to save it. Make sure you save the world as, save it as stage, and you're going to want to navigate your way to your template worlds folder. So where it's located on my computer is at the local C drive, program files, Alice 2.3. That's where your alice.exe file is. So if you know where that is, you can navigate from here too in relationship to the alice.exe file. You want to go into the required folder and then go into template worlds, and you're going to want to save it here. And this is where I save this. I save it as stage.a2w. And then what will happen is when you go to File, New World, if you go to Templates, it'll actually appear there under Stage. So then you can actually open it right from the get-go instead of doing all that, trying to find it in your folders or navigating your file system. It'll, as soon as Alice opens, it'll automatically be in your template folder. And you can do this with any file. I mean, if you have a file that you use, that you have settings in that you want to keep using over and over again, you can save that in the template folder, and then you can open it every time that every time Alice opens. I'm going to cancel here. I'm going to delete this penguin, and then I'm going to import our character we're going to be using for tomorrow's for the file for the movie, and he's located in the people folder, and I've taken the one that's out of the walking people. So you click on people, and you click on walking people folder, and then you're going to scoot on down to the handsome prince. Now I don't know why it's called the handsome prince. I don't think he's that handsome. Where's he at? Let's go to three-quarter view. Also, he's not in the right spot. He doesn't pay attention. Left view. There he is. We're going to reposition him. So he's at 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. There we go. And we're just going to rename them right away. I'm going to call them Duke. There we go. And one thing I want to do as well before we continue is, or before we start to animate him, is I want to bring in the flashlight. Now we're going to save him. We're going to save him as an object after we're done animating him. We're going to save him as an object, and then he's going to be exported out of this, or there's going to be a copy of him as a file outside of this file that we can import into any world we want in the future. And one of the things we're going to do is we're going to animate him looking to the left and the right while holding a flashlight. What we can't do, though, is we can't export that flashlight with the Duke. We can't do that. The flashlight itself is in an entirely different folder here. It's a different class all on its own. It's in the objects folder. If we scoot down to where's that? Flashlight. You'll see it's a different class. So these are two different classes, and even though we're going to make the flashlights and the prints kind of united, as in when the flashlight will have the prints as a vehicle, you can't export them both as one class. They're still two independent classes. Just want to make sure that that was well known. Okay. So I brought the flashlight into this file here. The flashlight we're using, I guess my point was, the flashlight we're using in this file here is just going to be a proxy. It's just going to be basically a dummy, just so we can know what it looks like when he's holding it. And then tomorrow, when we bring him into the night scene with the cave and the fire, there will be a flashlight in there already for him to use, and so he'll be using that flashlight that's in that file. Okay, so we're using our camera views here. I'm going to be using these a lot. I'm going to go through them quickly and not explain what I'm doing. I'm just going to go through it. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get to see the flashlight. There it is, because I want to position it in the Duke's hand. Okay. Let's go over here a little bit more. Actually, let's go to the front view. Okay, you'll also see, first of all, it's facing the wrong way. There we go. That the flashlight is incredibly big. It is much bigger than we'd have to have two hands at least to carry that. Yeah, it's way too big. So we're going to shrink that down. Let me go back to the front view here. Make it a little more hand size. It might be too small. Zoom in a little bit. Okay. That's not that bad. That's pretty good size. We go to top view. Zoom in a little bit more. Now we can't animate the prince's thumb, so we can't actually have him grab it, but I think it's gonna be good enough for our purposes for this animation. I think it looks pretty cool. Okay. There's that. Let's go back to the front view again. A lot of this is just eyeballing it. I think that looks pretty good. We go do a little bit of a under view here. Oops. Yeah, it looks good. See it from the right. I might be taking a little more time on this than necessary, but if you set this up the wrong way from the beginning, then it's a lot harder to change in the future. Because once you start animating it, you have to adjust all of your animations to accommodate the new position of the flashlight. So you kind of want to make sure it's in a position that you like, because you can change it easily, but it's again, you'll have to adjust a lot of animations if you start animating and it's not in a place that you like right now. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to go to the front. Let's go back that way just a little bit more. There you go. Go back to the front view. I like where the flashlight is located now. The next thing we have to do is attach it to the prints, because we move the prints around, the flashlight stays there, and we don't want that. So if you recall, what we need to do is we need to set the vehicle of the flashlight. So select the flashlight. You can also select it using the object tree. Look in the Properties tab of the flashlight's details, and then choose the vehicle. Right now it's set to World. if you look, you'll see that every object that's in the file right now is, including the dummies that we've created, the camera views, is an option to choose as a vehicle. We're going to choose the Duke, and we can choose the entire Duke, which sounds like a good idea. So we move the Duke around, the flashlight moves. If we rotate the Duke, the flashlight moves too. The problem is if we start affecting the subparts of the Duke, and we start rotating his arms, for instance, the flashlight doesn't move. We want that flashlight to move with his hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the flashlight again, and I'm going to get onto Duke, and I'm going to, or excuse me, down the vehicle, and I'm going to change it from Duke, and I want to change it to his hand. But you can't really just access his hand. You have to go through his whole body, and I'll show you how that works. If you look at your object tree, if you look at Duke, open that up, you'll see a torso that can be opened. You open up that torso, and you'll see the hand still isn't available. You have to go through the right upper arm, through the right lower arm, and then there's the right hand. That's the one we want. You can't select it from here. You have to select it from down here. But I just wanted to show you how the outline worked up here, how the hierarchy worked. All right, so I'm going to go back to flashlight, vehicle, and then I'm going to try to follow that same path. Duke to torso, to right upper arm, to right lower arm, to right hand. So I'm just leave it up here for a second so you can look at that. Duke, torso, right upper arm, right lower arm, then right hand. So you select that. Now when we select or you choose to affect subparts, when we start moving his arm around, the flashlight moves with it. Lower arm, flashlight moves, and we move the hand, the flashlight moves too. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. Okay, nice. I'll close all these just to make it a little easier to select things. Now we're ready to animate. We're ready to have him do his first pose. In his first pose, I know we said we're having him look to the right and look to the left, but we're going to have to do an initial pose. An initial pose is pretty much when he's at his natural state. You know, when you're standing still on your 2 feet, you're standing up. Where are your arms? Are they straight out to your sides? No. That's unless you're like pretending to be an airplane. Usually your arms are at your sides. So that's what we're going to do with the Duke here. We're going to have his arms lay naturally at his side, except for the one with the flashlight. He's going to be shining that forward, so he's going to make that go, kind of hold the flashlight in front of him as if he's looking around in front of him or looking where he's going. But his other arm's going to be resting at his side, so he's going to be a little more at ease. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate. What I like to do when I start animating or when I start repositioning body parts, I like to do it from the very first portion of the limb that's closest to the torso. So I'm going to start with the shoulder here, and I just wanted to lay it aside, and I want to rotate it down, but I really can't do it from this view, not with this tool anyway, not with the forward and backward turning tool. I can't do it with this guy. It does the wrong way too. If I go to the tumble, I can kind of do it, but it's by the time I get it there, his arm's twisted and he's showing me his palm. I don't really want that, so I'm going to Control-Z that, and I'm going to go to the right view. And that's why this scene is set up the way it is, so we can start, why these cameras are set up, so we can kind of use the cameras to help make adjustments. Okay, that's pretty good. His arm, even though I like the angle here, it's a little lower. It's almost where in fact I'll show you from the 3/4 view. It's almost equal to where his chest is. We want his shoulder to be where his shoulder is supposed to be, up high, up here. Let's go back to the front view. That's not too bad. And this part here, it's pretty much eyeballing it. You want to test it, stand up. You want to test to see what it feels like, what it looks like, what's natural. And then you wanted to mimic that. You want his limbs to mimic what you're doing when you're standing up. I'm going to have his hand shine a flashlight in front of him. I want it to twist a little bit. I don't want his hand to be. I don't want his palm or his knuckles to be above the flashlight. I want them to be to the side of the flashlight. So I'm going to rotate that way. That's not bad. 3/4 view, check that out. That's not too bad. If we zoom in a little bit more, we'll see that the hand is in a weird spot. It's kind of going out of the arm. We want that to go down a little bit more. Back a little bit more. There we go. Now it looks like his arm's coming out of the sleeve. And let's go back to 3/4 view. That's pretty good, I think. We'll do the same thing with his left arm. We can't leave it hanging up there like that. So we'll go to left view. Zoom in a little bit more. We're going to pull down his arm. And if you recall, his shoulder isn't up where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to pull it back up here. And I'm going to rotate it back a little bit. Again, this is all just kind of eyeballing it, kind of whatever feels right. Start with the one limb, or the one part of the limb, the one closest to his torso. I'm starting with his upper arm, and then move down to his lower arm. Oops, wrong view. Yep, still wrong view. There we go. There's a reminder to save. I'll do that right now. File, save, rolled as. I don't want to save it in my template world. Do not save it in your template world. That's only for files that you start with right away. I want to save this. I'm going to save it here. And we're not going to call it stage. Call it Duke animated. Save that. Okay. And I forgot the O1. You would definitely want to put the O1 after that because you don't want to save over your file by accident. It does happen. And this looks pretty good, I think. Maybe his arm could be out a little bit more. Okay. That's good enough. You can spend as much time as you want. I mean, this is just for demonstration purposes, so I'm not going to go too crazy with it. I kind of like his head to be down a little bit more. But, again, I'm not going to go too crazy with it. What we're going to do now is we want to save this pose. If we start animating him for the next pose, and we don't save this one, then we're going to lose all the work that we just did. So I'm going to select the Duke in the object tree. You gotta be careful because sometimes if you have the torso selected, it'll still look like the Duke is selected, but you don't want to do it from the torso level. You want to do it from the Duke level. So make sure that Duke is selected. Then go to capture pose. When you go to capture pose, you just click the button, and then a text field pops up, and it wants you to name it. I'm going to use natural. Oops, I'm going to call it natural pose. You can call it at ease, whatever you want to name it. Just make sure you don't abbreviate or use any silly abbreviations. Make sure you just spell the whole thing out. It also might be a good habit to get into doing something like this, where you use all lowercase and then no space, but use capital letters for the first word, so natural pose like that, or use underscore. You don't have to in Alice2. It's a good habit to get into, though, for when you do go on to do Alice3 or actual or robust programming languages. Usually spaces aren't allowed. So, but for Alice, you don't necessarily have to worry about that, or Alice 2.3. So natural pose, enter, and now that pose is saved. So this pose right here is saved in this variable here. So now what I'm going to do is we want to animate him so he's investigating to the right. And we're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to reposition it. We're going to eyeball it. I'm going to start with his head. I want him to look to the right. So I'm going to select his head. I'm going to rotate it. And you might see that this looks a little weird. His head is not moving. It just looks odd. If I zoom out a little bit more, you'll see how odd it looks. That's not natural. His head looks very uncomfortable. And then one of the reasons why it's doing this is because not only do individual objects have pivot points, or center points, but so do individual subparts. You can see this blue line here. That's the, I think that's the z-axis. The subpart axes have different colors than regular objects do. And there's this cyan line or green line coming up here, and that's the y-axis for his head. If we make his head a little less opaque, you can see that right here, that's the center. That's the pivot point. So when we start rotating his head, it's actually rotating at that point there, not down at his neck where it should be pivoting. So that's why it's making this really weird. Let me turn back on to fully opaque. That's why it's making this really weird movement here. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's tedious and it's a little annoying, but what you can do to rectify the situation is just position it manually. We're going to go to the right view, and that's way too much. We just want him to look over to the side a little bit, like that. Maybe he's using his eyes a little more to look. Just make it a little more natural. I'm going to move his head down a little bit, and I'm going to actually rotate it forward a little bit, so he's kind of tilting his head. Let's go to 3/4 view here. Yeah, let's push his head forward a little bit more. Front view. Let's move over this way a little bit more. Again, we're just eyeballing this. That's not too bad. It looks kind of good. Let's go to left view. Yeah, that's good. Front view. Perfect. Okay, so now his head's in position. We want to move his arm. And again, I'm going to start with his upper arm because it's the closest to the torso. And as I'm doing this, his arm is going to make some really funky movements. It's going to look like it's broken sometimes because of the other parts of his limb are going to be not lined up where I want it to be. But that's okay. We're going to just go one limb at a time, or one portion of the limb at a time. And again, test it. Move your arm yourself right now and test to see what does it look like when you hold a flashlight to the side. What would that? What angle should your arm be at? Move this down so shoulders at shoulder height. And I kind of like that angle. That angle's not too bad. Maybe a little lower. Maybe if it dips down, if the elbow dips down a little bit lower. I'll go to the right here. And we'll rotate it down a little bit more. That might be too much. There we go. Yeah, I like that. Okay, good. So now what we'll do is we'll rotate his forearm. Oops. Up and down, like that. Reposition a little bit more. Check that out from the side here. We're going to roll this forward a little bit. Check that out from the front. That's pretty good. We want this to go a little bit. You know what? We'll take this arm, the upper arm, and rotate it down a little bit more. Again, this is all we're just eyeballing it here. And we're using our actual limbs in the real world to gauge, to see how we would hold it, what's natural. And then finally we're going to move in on his hand. Rotate that down. Just move up a little bit more here. Okay. There we go. Rotate it that way. There we go. So let's go to the front view. And how is your hand when you hold a flashlight to the side? Is it this way, or is it whoa? Is it at least attached to your arm? There we go. But we'll say his knuckles are underneath. We'll say this is pretty good for where his hand is supposed to be as far as holding the flashlight. Let's go to 3/4 view and check that out. You know what? It's too far that way. There we go. Oops. Uh-oh. Looks like the flashlight has grown in size by mistake. Let's see if that's true. Yeah, looks like it. We'll reduce the size of that. Not sure what happened there. Okay. And the other thing what I like to do is every time you move your arm or move a limb on your body, the rest of your body usually, and then we won't worry about the legs or his hips or anything, but usually you'll have some other counter movement to balance it out. So if all your weight's going to the right, you're extending. Usually with your other limb, with the left limb, you're going to push it the other direction to counterbalance that. So I'm going to do that here as well. I'm going to go to the left view. I'll rotate his arm just up slightly. I'm going to rotate it back a little bit, and then I'm going to go to the front view. Rotate it forward. Oops. Rotate it forward a little bit here. I'm going to go to the top here. Make sure it's forward a little bit more. There we go. And it's not exact, but I have to get up out of my seat to move around to see exactly how much I would go. In real life, we'll rotate his hand. Maybe his arm a little bit. There we go. Okay, I like that. We'll go to the front view again, make sure. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And I'm going to save this pose. I'm just going to go to the Duke, capture pose, and we're going to save this as investigate right. I'm not going to do the investigate left now because I think hopefully you get the hang of it by now. You really want to, again, stand up and test the pose. How would you move, and then try to move the body parts, subparts, so it matches. What I am going to do though is I'm going to show you how this works, like what this looks like. I'm going to go to I'm going to close that. I'm going to hit this done button over here. This is how you get back to the method view. This is how you get back to the programming view. Actually, I'm going to save it first. I'm going to go to File, Save World As, and this is going to be _02, because remember that first one was supposed to be underscore or 01. So 02, save. And then what I'm going to do is, then we're in this method view. I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. Today I'm just going to give you kind of a quick preview of how to do this so you can test out your own animations as you're making poses. But and then I'll go through all of this tomorrow, including all the tiles down here. But for now, I just want to show you what this looks like. So we're going to go to the natural pose. We're going to pull it up here. And then the investigate right pose that we just created. So those are, if you make sure you have your Duke selected, go to Properties in your Duke detail window, and then you pull those two over. And just to show you, these two windows right here are exactly the same as they are right here. So when you're in this mode and you're editing and you're animating, your Objects Tree window and your Details window are exactly the same windows when you're in the programming mode. These are exactly the same, excuse me. So once you pull in your poses, you just drag them over here. It says Duke set pose to natural pose and Duke set pose to investigate right. If you hit the play button, what will happen is it'll run through each of these actions. It'll set the pose to the natural pose, and it'll set the pose to investigate right in order. So hit play. So that's it. You stand straight and looks over to the right. And it's kind of quick, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to change, and again, I'll talk about this more in detail tomorrow, but if you go to More, you can go to Duration and set this to Other. I'm going to set this to 0. What this is saying is it's going to take 0 seconds for this pose to happen. So hit play this time. It automatically starts at that natural pose. It took 0 seconds for him to do that. Otherwise, before it was set to 1. Right now, this even down here, this guy, the default is 1 second. And this is what it looked like. Remember, he put his arms down first. That's because he's going from the pose he's in right now to the set pose in natural for 1 second. If we set this to 0 seconds, it's going to ignore what's being set right now and instantly set him at the natural pose. Then what we can do is, I know we'll talk about this tomorrow, but I want to show you at least this one command here. This command tile is called wait. So you can put a wait in there for, let's say 1 second. So what's going to happen is the Duke will set his pose to natural pose instantaneously. Then he's going to wait at 1 second. He's going to not do anything at all for 1 second, and then he's going to set his pose to investigate right. So let's watch that. So he instantly stays at ease, waits a second, and then looks to the right. Hopefully now you're kind of understanding how these poses or can work. Can be kind of powerful. We can also set the pose for the investigation. Maybe it's going to be a longer. It's going to take a little longer for him. Maybe he's being a little dramatic about it. What is over there? Or maybe he's quick. Maybe something scurried by and he heard something and he's going to look real quick. So you can change the settings here for the duration. That's pretty much. Oh, there's one more thing before we go. I want to show you how to save your object. Let's pretend that we got the Duke to look to the right and look to the left, and we got him to do every animation that we wanted him to do. We're ready to export them and import them into our environment, our actual world. We can right-click on them, go to Save Object, and then we can navigate our way to our Alice folder, which is in the program files. I saved it. That's where I saved mine, Alice 2.3. You can either save them here, which I did previously, save them in the Duke.a2c file right here, or you can save him in the required. Go to Gallery, English, People, and you can save him right here. In fact, I did save him here as well. I'm going to save him again. And if you save them in your gallery, what happens is if you go to your local gallery, you go to People, where he was saved. Oops. And you scroll down, you'll see that there's a Duke person here. There's a Duke object. If I delete this guy, that's Duke that's on here now, delete, it's going to yak at me because I did some programming. Just ignore this, pretend this isn't happening. And he's going to disappear. And then if you drag the Duke in, he's going to appear. He's going to be in the exact same position that you saved him at. So he's actually at 0, 0, 0. There he is, 0, 0, 0. And he still has his natural pose and his investigate right pose. He'll also have any methods that you created, any animations that you created for him. He'll have any variables that you created for him. He'll have any sound effects you created. So that's one of the things that's really cool about Alice is you can you can edit some of these objects down here. You can save them, and then you can import them into your worlds to use. It's pretty cool. Okay.